What's going on, friends? This is the Year One Wrestling Podcast, the show that dives deep into the early stages and formation of your favorite professional wrestlers, bringing out their struggles, their fears, and most importantly, their most interesting stories. I'm your host, the King of Chaos, Logan Black, and thank you so much for checking us out on whatever platform you enjoy your podcasts on. We are all about showing love here, so if you dig what you hear, or if you just feel like being awesome, show some love, hit the subscribe button, leave a review, tell a friend, help us get the word out on the show. Slowly but surely, wrestling is coming back. We're seeing shows just about every weekend popping up here and there all over the United States. In some cases, it seems a bit irresponsible, but there are some situations, I gotta, tip my hat to Beyond and GCW, where everybody's socially distancing, everybody's wearing masks. From what I hear, the promoters are walking around asking people to put their hands out, and they're giving them hand sanitizer. That's pretty dope. I think that's great. Synergy Wrestling did a great job of that in the show that I was on. Everybody socially distanced, everybody in masks, the rings being disinfected, which it's the same reaction I think I had when we first found out about this and how they were going to run the New York City subways, in that, they're going to be sanitizing and cleaning it every couple of hours, and it's just like, man, there are thousands of people who ride that shit every fucking day. Why are you guys not disinfecting it at least daily? But anyone who's ridden the subway in New York City knows that that place is just an absolute mess, and if you've ridden it at this point, it's a whole lot cleaner. But I digress. It's good to see the rings are getting cleaned more and more often now. That's a positive. And yeah, I just think it's good to see wrestling being done in a responsible way in the midst of this pandemic, to give, wrestlers and fans exactly what they need and what they want. So kudos to everybody who's going about this in the safest way possible. Before we move on to the show, I just want to let you guys know I'm really appreciating seeing the numbers go up for the Year One Wrestling Podcast YouTube account. I know we're still trying to build this thing from the ground up. It's a lot of content going up. A lot of it just short videos here and there. I know this week alone we had both Bear Boulder going on there talking about his favorite rib to play on new wrestlers, and then Davian talking about her road tips, her tips for traveling the road. Those videos are fun. It's a whole series I've got going on. I have so many that I'm waiting to put out, and those will come out with time. You can check the ongoing series Pro Wrestling Explained, dramatic pause, To My Wife, coming out every Thursday. And I do a music show too. I think I'm possibly going to be taking that one down and putting it on its own thing, because it's not wrestling related, even though everybody we have on is related to wrestling, because that's, the only social life that I have at this point. But I don't know, if you dig that, let me know. Be like, hey, the music show is fun. Leave that on there. Otherwise, I'm probably going to switch it to a different account. But as I say with everything, subscribe, comment, thumbs up, whatever. Anything that helps us get the algorithms up. Let's build this together from the ground up. On to this week's guest, all that Ava Everett. For those of you unaware, Ava is a female professional wrestler working out of Boston, Massachusetts. Super bright future. She mentions it in the interview. She's only been doing this under 2 years at this point, but she's had a great amount of success for the amount of time and the amount of hustle that she's put into it. She does work super, super hard. Started out as one of the Platinum Honeys, accompanying my good buddy, Retro AG, to the ring. And she's really done a ton of work to kind of, I don't want to say separate herself from that, because, her and AG are great together in terms of, what they bring to a show, but separate herself in terms of being unique on a card and standing out amongst so many other wrestlers. You've got Avataker, which I think is absolutely brilliant. Girls Room, her tag team with Davian, where they pretty much just dress up as Power Rangers. I gotta tell you guys, when those two are set to enter and that Power Rangers theme hits, you gotta watch the entire locker room just everyone's playing air guitar. Everybody. If someone says they're not, they're fucking lying to you. Just so much fun to have her in the locker room. She's a great human being. The first time I actually met Ava Everett, and this is funny, was at my wedding. AG was invited. He's a good buddy of mine. And he goes, hey, could I bring a guest? And I was kind of like, ugh. You hate those people. Honestly, if you're listening to this and you're married or you've had a wedding, don't you hate it when people are like, oh, could I bring this person? And you didn't account for it. But, AG's a good buddy, and it's like, all right, whatever. And he brought Ava. It was the first time that I ever met her, and she was just such a wonderful, wonderful person to be around. And I've only gotten to know her better, through being on shows and seeing her work and seeing her improve. My God, again, only at it for 2 years. So when we talk about, the first year in wrestling, it's all pretty recent for her. I also want to give Ava some credit for kind of bringing to my attention the role that, a lot of female professional wrestlers, particularly the divas, played for a lot of people. I know I've mentioned this before, and truth be told, like, this interview was one of the first that I had done when I had first had the concept for this podcast. And to me, like, it just, the divas were not my cup of tea, which is fine. We're all entitled to, our likes and opinions on what art we consume. But in speaking to people like Ava, where she talks about, the role that they played in the women's revolution, from there, and it's kind of like, damn, like, these women were, they might not have been the best in-ring technicians, but damn, were they incredible entertainers. And now I'm going back and I'm watching a lot of that stuff. And, the bra and panties matches, as you see on, Pro Wrestling Explained to My Wife, it's hard to kind of come to terms with that in 2020. But at the same time, man, what a lot of these, the women were doing with angles and, the matches with limited resources, I mean, goddamn. Going out there and for, like, the 3 minutes they were given, being able to maximize that. I think that, as somebody who's, sometimes watches wrestling under a microscope, so to speak, I think it's super important to recognize and respect the role that, a lot of these women played, and the fact that, again, they were able to maximize 3 minutes worth of TV time and still be insanely over. Gotta respect that. Much love. And I give credit to people like Ava for, showing me the important role that these women played. But enough of me talking about her. Why don't we just hear what she has to say about her first year in wrestling? All that Ava Everett on the Year One Wrestling Podcast. We start with all that Ava Everett. Ava, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I made sure that we hit the record button as we started into a conversation. How are things on your end? I mean, at this point, things are kind of crazy all over the world.
Yeah, it's a little crazy for me, especially I work in a restaurant in Massachusetts, so it's my work life is fine. I still have a job, but I mean, out of my 80 staff, I'm only staffing like 15 people right now. Because in Mass, you can only do to go. There's no sit down restaurants like at all.
Yeah,
I'm sure
it's the same. It's same in New York City as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's more than just Massachusetts, but it's been really crazy. So like trying to get the word out and like having to be out into the community is kind of like a little scary, but I've been doing it and I'm still working, so I guess I should be fortunate enough to still have a job,
Yeah, I think at this point everybody is just thankful for whatever we've got in any way, shape, or form. It's rough out there. It seriously is. Everybody's hurting.
Oh, absolutely.
So completely switching gears from negativity to try and bring things up and make everything happy here. Let's talk about wrestling, which is something that you and I and everybody who'll be listening to this will all enjoy. Did you have any background in wrestling, any combat sports, anything related to wrestling prior to you joining up?
I had absolutely no background knowledge and or experience in the wrestling community, whether that be amateur or professional wrestling, before I started. I actually, oddly enough, hated wrestling. I was like always that kid that was 13 going on 30. So when I was growing up, it was still kind of like Attitude Era, and all I was seeing were bra and panty matches, which I thought were super offensive at the time. And now I like love the Diva Era and I love the Attitude Era now that I like look back on this world of censorship that we live in. But at the time, I hated it. I thought it was awful. And then I started watching again, and I don't know if this is going to be one of your questions, so I'll reiterate this again later. I started watching again during like the Divas Revolution, and that's when I decided to really get into wrestling. So maybe like 2016.
I think it's more telling of just how old I am. But like when I hear 2016, I go, oh, that's recent. But for like so many people that I speak to on the podcast, it's like, yeah, but everyone's young, and that was like their prime watching time.
I know. It's crazy to me because I never ever I have very vivid memories of watching with my uncle when he lived with us for a short time, but other than that, I have like little to no experience with wrestling at all.
So your love of wrestling came quickly, and then from there you ended up joining up with a school. Am I correct in assuming?
Yes, correct.
Who were the people that inspired you in watching?
For me, I feel like for most girls, like nowadays, I saw like Becky and Charlotte and Sasha Banks, when they had that big triple threat match at WrestleMania. Oh man, I think it was WrestleMania 2017, and I'm not good at like knowing numbers of those, so I apologize. I wish that I was, but um probably WrestleMania in 2017 was the first time I was like, wow, this is really cool. I think this is something. It was either 2017 or 2018, I'm not sure, but now that I'm thinking, I'm like, my mind is going. I thought it was really cool, and I figured that it, in a way, it was super athletic, but they also came across to me as like actors because I was a huge theater kid. And like the emotion that was emoted really was something that I was able to connect with. And I thought, I've played sports my entire life. I work out a lot. I love, being physical and playing sports. And I loved theater and singing. So I figured, like, hey, this looks like something that's kind of like a mesh of all of the things that I like. I should try this.
Honestly, I think I should start amending that first question that I asked to be less of a sports or wrestling background, because there are so many people that do have interest in or had a background in theater that ended up picking up wrestling, because you're absolutely right. There is a serious similarity there.
Yeah, I was a huge theater kid growing up.
Really, what productions were you in?
Oh man.
Let's play off each other on this.
I've done Legally Blonde, Urinetown. I was in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. I've performed in, we did Schoolhouse Rock, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Oh
And
my
this
gosh,
is all through
so
like
many.
school
Cinderella.
and stuff like that?
Yeah, school.
Nice.
There were a lot of, well, there weren't a lot, but there was one, kind of theater production. It was like through a college that was in my town that like anybody could do, and they would do big shows, but it was never something that I was totally interested in doing, just because like on top of, doing theater in school, I was in band, I was in chorus, I did theater. I was a 3-season athlete, so I was playing sports while doing all of that, and I was an honor student, and I took AP classes, so I had like a very full plate. So I tried to stick as much as I could to just being in school and doing things at school because it was just more convenient.
Yeah, because you didn't have a free goddamn everything you're
Nope,
sitting there talking
I didn't.
about. Not a free moment.
And then when I wasn't at school, I played like club sports for soccer or European football. So I was just always doing something.
So when you do finally decide to hop into this crazy world of wrestling, where do you go?
I started training at the New England Pro Wrestling Academy, which is in North Andover, Massachusetts. It's formerly known as Killer Kowalski School of Pro Wrestling or the Chaotic Training Center. And most of us say we're trained by Brian Fury. And then there's a ton of other trainers at the school, obviously. Like you, I know you used to train, and you know that there are other people that are involved with training most of us. But when we're asked, we say, oh, we're trained by Brian Fury at the New England Pro Wrestling Academy. Because Brian's done, he's done guest training at the PC, I think 3 times now. So the right people know who he is.
I brought this up, like literally in terms of the rundown of, who's currently making money in wrestling, who's currently producing stars. New England Pro Wrestling Academy. There's no other place that's doing that anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the list, if you want to keep it recent, there's Anthony Greene, Tommaso Ciampa, Oney Larkin, or Biff Busick, whatever you want to call him, Sasha Banks. Oh my God, there's so many people that
Dijak?
Kofi Kingston, Dijak, Ivar or Warbeard, whatever you would. I know it's so weird. Like once they go to WWE, if their name changes, it's like, who are you going to know this person as if you're not an indie wrestling fan? Because I feel
Right.
like there are a lot of people that are not indie wrestling fans that just know these people as, their WWE personas. So, well, and I think that it's fair to say if we're from New England, we're from Massachusetts or Rhode Island respectively. Like there are really only two places that I would ever suggest anybody train. I mean, I guess I can't really say that. That's not fair. There's definitely different places that people come from, but for the most part, if you're talking about Massachusetts or like Rhode Island area wrestling, people are pretty much either coming out of XWA or New England Pro Wrestling Academy. And I know that the XWA is they say that those kids are trained by like the Kingdom, so Matt Taven, Vinny Marseglia, TK Orion. But for the most part, people that are kind of getting out there in New England come from one of the two places. So it is hard when you're from New England because if you want to do really well in wrestling, you'll choose to go to one of those places. But I mean, it's if you're from New York, you come from like Cap, and Cap has a ton of really successful people coming out of it right now. I feel like Brian Meyer's school is one of like the most up and coming wrestling academies. So I always say if you're from the East Coast and you're looking for a place to train and you're willing to kind of like uproot yourself and go live, somewhere to train, I would say, Cap or Nepwa is really the place to go.
Yeah, I was gonna say New York. Cap is certainly the spot.
Yeah. And it's hard
honestly,
because there are so many people that come from, smaller wrestling schools, but I feel like the reputations of New England Pro Wrestling Academy and CAP speak for themselves. So,
certainly.
we all talk their praises, and you have to space out your podcast, but I guess it's for a really good reason.
Right. I mean, like again, like all the successful people that I'm talking to, like I said, like it'll be plenty of New England Pro Wrestling Academy folks, and then I mean some of the others from all over the place. But there's been like a concentration that I've gotten at least the last couple of days where it's just been everyone singing the praises of school.
Yeah, and I'm sure that I know you're gonna be doing a podcast with Anthony too. I know that he was originally trained at Spike Dudley School, and there's a lot of really great people that came out of there.
Right. That's true. Like that's
Phil
one of those
explained
places.
too.
Yeah,
So
there's
I'm
one
gonna
of those
leave that
places.
for his podcast, so maybe he won't talk about Nepwa.
Well, yeah, no. So Spike Dudley spot is one of those places where it flew under the radar for a bit, and a lot of those people
Yeah.
split off into other spots. So in doing that, those other places kind of got the credit, despite the fact that hey, Spike was there.
Yeah, and you know what? And a lot of people start different places, and then I feel like most of us. I mean, I have only ever trained at New England Pro Wrestling Academy. I mean, I've done classes at other schools, but I've only ever trained every week at New England Pro Wrestling Academy. But people like Anthony, they've trained at other facilities, and those facilities had a large impact on where they come in their wrestling style. So I just feel like everybody ends up at NEPA. Like at the end of the day, they end up there.
Yeah, I think the seasoning of different places is all good, but when you're ready
Yeah.
to cook something and have it come out of the oven as a perfect loaf of awesomeness.
Yes,
And you
I
gotta pick the
agree.
right spot. So after you're sitting through the class and watching, what does your first day of physical training entail over there?
So usually what they'll do is if there is a new person, I would say that everybody does blow-ups that day, usually just so, and we do blow-ups a lot, which is like cardio-based exercises. So
Right.
usually if there's a new person, we do cardio for like an hour to an hour and a half. And usually it's really, really hard. There's different things that he does, but everybody will do like a cardio-based exercise for, an hour to an hour and a half, and then you go over to the beginner ring. And I believe, and it was like, oh, it was so long ago, it was like 2 years now. I think my first day was, they practiced like lockups almost the entire class, like lockups, reversals of chain wrestling, a little bit. You usually don't really even step into the ring that first day. And then from there, your second and third class, I think, is like bumps and hitting the ropes. But like you do these things like up 500 times. So if class is 4 hours long and you do blow ups for an hour, you're gonna spend the next 3 hours doing, like, I kid you not, like locking up 500 to 1,000 times. Like I feel like I have locked up with people like more times than I could ever wish upon anyone. And it seems like very boring and very repetitive, but I mean, I guess they just want you to learn muscle memory. So when you are at the point where you're running, doing different drills, it's very easy for you. You just know what you're doing.
Oh, certainly. I mean, the repetition is what makes all this kind of
And
stuff
that's
tick.
what we do. It's repetition, repetition, repetition for like ever.
Who else was there kind of helping you out?
For me, and when I was in the beginner ring, I mostly interacted with Johnny Vegas, Scotty Slade, Julian, or Julian Starr. There were a couple times where the Logan brothers helped us out. There is a Wednesday class that is completely different trainers than Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, which is Big Scott or Max Smashmaster and Chase Del Monte. They run Wednesday classes. So there are a ton of different people that, help us out, all out. And then sometimes I was very fortunate, but the kids that are in the advanced ring that are on shows, for me, I was very fortunate because I was very eager to learn. So after I would do regular classes, Anthony would help me, whether it was with a heat drill or a shine or working on moves or you name it. They were always very, very helpful. And I would say that they I would give them a lot of credit to where I am now in terms of being on shows and my showmanship. I mean, and I'm still working on my character and my crispness in the ring, but they definitely got me to the next level so that I could even be on shows. So
Who else was in that beginner class with you? Anybody of note, or everyone kind of just fall along the wayward?
originally, when Anthony and I were doing myself and the Platinum Honeys, the other Platinum Honey, but she just does a lot of smaller shows now. And then I know that most recently she was with us. We went to bar wrestling in California. But other than that, at least in the that my like class per se, there's no one. Yeah, no, there's nobody at all.
No, I mean that's common
Border,
to hear.
this CJ Cruz. He does Limitless.
I know CJ. Yeah,
He mostly trained on Wednesday classes, but he had trained originally, like I think he said in 2013, but he had gotten injured and he took almost like 4 years off, longer than that actually. So then when he came back, we came back around the same. Well, he came back and then I was just starting. Probably around the same time we started doing shows again together. So CJ Cruz, I would say he's kind of in my group. There are a few kids now that are probably 6 to 8 months in. I mean, I'm only like a year and a half in. So there's Charlie Cashew, Ricky Archer, CJ Cruz. They started probably 6 to 8 months after me. But they're on shows now. And then I would say 6 to 8 months before me, DL Hurst, he started having matches like 6 months before me. That's really it. There aren't a lot of kids that actually started within like a month or two that actually still do this.
that's a fairly common thing to hear. A lot of people
They
are
quit.
dropping out pretty quick. Yeah, I mean
It's
you drop
hard.
out
It's
pretty
not
quick. Yeah.
easy. People think
No.
it's, fake fighting or whatever, but you get hurt for real. You have to have incredible cardio. It's a mind game. A lot of people, you get yelled at a lot. You get told that you're bad at wrestling a lot. Because I feel like that's just the way that old school wrestling was kind of formatted. But it's a mind game for a lot of people, and it's very hard to stick it out. Like I can't even tell you how many times I was like, why am I doing this? Like this isn't fun. I'm getting yelled at. I'm getting told that I'm bad at this. It feels like everybody's mean. Nobody's nice to each other until you get on like real shows, and then everybody's friends. And for the most part, all the people that are being mean to you, you're really friendly with them too. It's just, it's very difficult. Like, it's very hard to stick through it.
Yeah, it's super competitive.
Anybody that doesn't stick to it, I really, all the power to them, because it's a horrible, sometimes it can be a really negative environment, but I think if you do stick through it, you end up having a lot of fun.
What goals did you have breaking in, like for yourself in terms of short term and long term?
Well, I feel like most people's long-term goals, and this is, I am not speaking for everyone, but I feel like the mecca of professional wrestling for most people is WWE. So obviously, for me and a lot of other people, my main goal is to one day get to NXT and be on, the WWE roster. But I think right now, my short-term goals, I'm really hoping to, I mean, after all of this, coronavirus craziness is done, I'm trying to stay as prevalent on online as I can, and I'm trying very, very hard to, to increase, my social media followers and put out content. So right now, staying relevant while, we're all not wrestling on shows. And then I plan on, I really want to reach out and get to as many of like those bigger promotions as I can. I do regularly wrestle for Beyond, but usually I've only wrestled in tag, like mixed tags or regular tag matches, or, multi-man. So I'm hoping to break out more as a singles competitor and be able to, represent myself. I'm also hoping that within the next year or so, I get to debut for Shimmer. That's a huge goal for myself as a female wrestler. I absolutely would love, love, love to work for Shimmer.
That's the pinnacle of female wrestling in the States.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. And it's so funny because I feel like all of my female wrestling friends a lot of them are there. A lot of them do Shimmer. And I just haven't been able to, it's never worked out where I've been able to get out to like a Rise seminar and get myself out there. And then with the most recent Shimmer show, being canceled, I'm just really hoping that there's going to become a point in time, because I think they only do 2 shows a year, that I get to go out and do one of their seminars so that I can just get my face out there so that they can see me. So Shimmer, singles wrestling for Beyond. I'd love to get back. I've done some very small matches for Limitless, and I've done small matches for Let's Wrestle, which is their sister/brother promotion. But I'd really like to get myself used regularly on the Limitless roster, and just really getting myself out there. Hopefully, being acknowledged by some contracted promotions. That would be really cool. But those are my, my year-long to, next 5-year goals, which is kind of short-term in wrestling, kind of. I feel like you either get really, really popular fast, or it takes you like 10 years. So however it happens.
Or it just never happens.
Or it never happens. Yeah, and that might be the case for me. And
no,
if
I mean,
I'm cool with it.
No, you've sat here and you've already ran down the list of accomplishments you've had in a year and a half. That was more of a dig at myself, sitting around.
And you know what? It's funny though. I've been super fortunate to train where I do. And then I feel like a lot of the success that I have, not only being in such a unique group as myself, Anthony, and Angel Sinclair were, I feel like Retrosexual Anthony Greene and the Platinum Honeys were so unique to wrestling, because there weren't a lot. I mean, there were people that had multiple managers, but there weren't a lot of wrestlers that had 2 hot blonde wrestlers, wrestling/valets that came out to the ring with him. We were trainees at the time, so we weren't just a pretty face. Like, if they wanted to hit us or bump us in a match, we were able to do that. And it was so like, people loved it. It was crazy. Like, there were so many times that we would do crazy things, and we were like, man, we're gonna get, there's a cancel culture, we're gonna get canceled. But people were so embracive of what we were doing, and I think that we were so fortunate to have such a good reception with, you know, the wrestling industry and the wrestling crowd. But other than us being such a unique act, when I first started, I was probably only 3 to 4 months in. I started doing ring crew at Beyond Wrestling, and I mean, to this day, other than their show, they did WrestleMania weekend in oh my gosh, it was in New Orleans. And then I was on vacation in Mexico and then one other time. So since I've started, I have never missed a WWR or a Beyond show. I have gone to every single one and I've helped out at every single one. So in terms of like showing face and doing ring crew and trying out, you know, trying your best to you know, put your good foot forward. I think that Beyond and their YouTube presence and then them doing the weekly shows for Uncharted Territory, it really helped me blow up in the span of like 6 to 8 months, because I was always there. Like every single week, people were seeing my face because of IWTV. So I think those two major things helped me kind of like explode the way that I did. And there are a lot of people that don't know who I am, obviously, because I am brand new. I've only been doing this for like a year and a half, maybe. But I have been very fortunate for the opportunities, you know, that I've had. I mean, we've done Ring of Honor, we've Beyond, Limitless. I was an extra on WWE TV and probably one of the worst WWE reveal segments ever. I was in the Eric Rowan. They revealed what was in his cage, and people were so mad.
You were there with Slade, right?
Me and Slade and I were literally right there.
I know, it's insane to watch.
Shot. And we ran away from an animatronic spider, and people were so upset about it. I thought it was hilarious. It was so great. We were having a blast. It was so much fun to do. I've just had really, really awesome opportunities, and I don't want to take away any of the accomplishments that I've had on my own, but I also feel like I've definitely been right place, right time in a lot of circumstances. And I mean, wrestling has completely taken over my life. Like when I'm not at my real job or working out at the gym or, you know, at a show, like I'm training or doing something for wrestling, whether it's promos or being on my phone for social media 24/7. So like, I don't want people to think that I've been super lucky, because wrestling has completely taken over my life. I don't have a lot of free time, and I've invested a lot of time and money to do this. But I've also been very fortunate to be friendly with the people that I know and super respectful to get myself, you know, great opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's weird to give luck a bit of any of that, but also keep in mind you're in a good position in terms of being in New England, where there are a bunch of promotions that have eyes on it.
I'm in the Mecca of wrestling.
Right now, absolutely, that's where all the eyes are on. And additionally, again, like you're putting all that work in and hustling, like it's like a good cocktail, you know, from someone who hasn't had a drink since I was 17. It's a delicious cocktail of things where it's like, again, a little bit of luck with a lot of hustling and being in that right spot all mixed together is a delicious cocktail. It could be non-alcoholic. It's cool.
It could be. So a lot of people love non-alcoholic cocktails.
That's it. It's all I've survived on for, Jesus, too long at this point. So I'm gonna assume that the first gimmick that was given to you was Platinum Honey, correct?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so off the bat, you had a gimmick that was working, one that you from time to time that you'll do.
You know what's
at this
crazy?
Point.
The Platinum Honey thing was literally a one-off. Myself and Angel were literally valets for Anthony at Cold Fury, which is like the WrestleMania for our home promotion. And we literally walked him to the entrance and then went to the back. And everybody they just saw the entire act together and they wanted to do more with it. And I think Drew at Beyond was trying to find a place for Anthony. And once he had seen like the retro thing that he was doing and he had these two hot girls with him, he was like, man, I want to do this. And then Chaotic started using us regularly with Anthony. And then we did Limitless a few times. And then everybody started crawling out of the woodworks and they were like, hey, can you do the show? can you bring the girls? And it just like exploded from how in the span of what, like 6 months? 6 months or so. Anthony's in the room, that's why I just asked. I'm not asking a phantom ghost. In the span of like 6 months, it was people were like booking Anthony, and like he had to bring the girls with him because it was just so, it was so unique. It was
right.
different.
No, when I was asked, because for the longest time I had bugged people like, yo, AG is so good, you gotta get him on,
He
gotta get him,
is.
but like nothing. That people would just be like, and then finally, boom, the Platinum Honeys come along, and people, how much, what about that AG guy? Get in touch. It's like, motherfucker, I've been talking about him for a while.
Yeah.
But
And,
no,
it really is too bad because he is the same exact wrestler that he was without the girls.
certainly,
He does the same spots. He doesn't change anything.
right,
but
it's about experience. You get a different experience with AG and the Platinum Honeys. It's completely different.
The fans want to take pictures with all three of us. They want to be our friend, you know. And we're just a blast. We just have a lot of fun.
Talk to me about your first match, singles match. Let's go with that because I'm sure that, because I know for a fact that you were involved in some multis for a little bit with AG and Angel.
I can't even tell you how many multi-man matches I've been in.
Let's go with your first singles match.
This is hard because I don't know if it was versus Sierra or if it was versus Davienne. It was Sierra. I wrestled Sierra. She was probably started about maybe 4 to 6 months before me. She is from XWA. She is not wrestling right now. She had a pretty serious injury. My first singles match was against her at this promotion called NCW. It's very, very, very small, but it's Anthony's like when he was first got into the business, it was like his best friends. And we're still really, really great friends with them. But that he says it was Sierra. So Sierra was my first match ever at NCW. And it was fine. I did okay. I think people were really surprised at how well I did. They definitely thought it wasn't my first match, but at the same time, I'm sure it was horrible. I think most people's first match was really bad, right?
It depends. I was just talking.
So hard.
Well, I was talking to Davian, whose first match was on Ring of Honor TV.
I know.
I know. My jaw was on the ground.
Yeah, she did a squash match against Mischief.
Yup, it's just,
literally.
But like things like that, like compare that again to like someone who's like, oh yeah, my first match, I didn't know what I was doing.
Was probably in front of like maybe 40 people, and I was, like I said, I was super fortunate because I had been in front of a crowd at that point for like 6 months or so, just being a valet. So I knew how to interact in front of a crowd, but then it's so much different than being a manager because now you're actually doing the wrestling portion of it, and you have to interact with the fans. Oh, it was crazy. It was a wild experience. And I don't know if I don't feel like anybody's ever truly ready for their first match. Like, there's no perfect scenario. But I feel like once I had the first one, and then I had the second one, and then I had the third one, it, like, got so much easier. And then I feel like on top of that, my first singles matches in general, I wrestled Sierra a lot. And I cannot tell you how many times I've wrestled Davienne.
Yeah, she mentioned having wrestled you a billion times.
We literally tag now because we were like, dude, we love working each other. Like, I love wrestling her. I think that she is super underappreciated, and she should be signed somewhere, and I don't understand how she's not. But we literally were like, we're best friends, and we're fighting each other literally every weekend, and this isn't a bad thing. But also, how do we work this so that we don't have to wrestle each other anymore?
I mean, that's a good strategy if you start telling people, nope, we tag, can't wrestle each other. That makes perfect sense.
We seriously, we do wrestle each other, and we still have so much fun when we do, because we trust each other so much that, like, there's stuff I've done with Davienne that I would, never in a million years think that I could ever do. But I love tagging with her. She is so much fun because she's always like a heel. She's always mean. Like she's always the one beating me up. And we get to be baby faces together and we dress up like Power Rangers and we just yell and scream and do stupid stuff and like we're comedy and we're funny and we just have so much fun.
So, I mean, you mentioned always hustling for Beyond and, getting on the road for other spots. What are your memories of your first, like, big road trip and, like, what stories came?
You know what? It's crazy. My first ever, like, road trip that I very, very specifically remember, and you know what? I honestly probably met you at the show. I was not wrestling. I was training. I was probably, like, 3 months in, and I drove to Pro Wrestling Magic with Anthony just to go. Like I wasn't ready to be on shows. Like I was like still like very much in the beginner ring. I was not even considering being used as a valet. And we went to Pro Wrestling Magic and it was the first time I like had I had never like really driven like long distance other than like when I vacationed when I was a kid with my family. And we drove to Ridgefield Park, New Jersey, and that was like the first show I really remember driving to and going to was with Anthony.
I keep thinking because that's 45 minutes for me, but you guys up in Boston, that's a bit of a trek. So that makes sense for you.
I think he wrestled Pinky Sanchez.
That makes sense. That makes sense on a Magic show.
And I was completely by myself. And I sat next to Fala and Sean Donovan, and they were really nice to me. That's all I remember about the whole show. And then I think we got White Castle after.
There is one super close by, but that's a wicked great idea.
Anthony just gave me a thumbs up because I think he's really impressed with how much I'm remembering of this first travel scenario.
So, I mean, it has only been a year and a half, but if the Avataker of today could speak to the newly minted Platinum Honey from just starting out, what would she say to her? Or what advice would you have?
I think I would tell myself, you know what? I don't think I would change anything. And I know that sounds really cliche, but here's my reasoning behind that. I'm very new. And Anthony and I, when we first started going to shows together, we were not dating. We were friends. And I think that the Platinum Honeys really enhanced him, and it really helped him to get eyes on what he was producing. I think that he's super talented, and this might sound really corny, but as much as they tell you, don't get stuck being a valet, don't get stuck in a trio, don't get stuck, being with a tag partner or whatever it may be. I think that all of the times that I was really, really miserable and just wanted to be my own person, I don't think I can ever, make up for all the great opportunities that Anthony has gotten because he deserved them. So I think that I would keep my mouth shut and just let things play out as they are, because I think it really got him to the next level, and being in a relationship with him and just being with him as like on a friend level, and not even just, him being, my significant other. I think that I'm so happy with where I am and where he's gotten to be that I don't think I could ever change things or say anything to myself that could potentially like stray the path of where he is now.
That's a very, very respectable answer. So as we start to come towards the end of this interview, I have the one, possibly two questions that I ask to everybody. My theory is, in the first year of professional wrestling, everybody meets at least somebody who goes down in their brain as the weirdest person that they will come across. Definitely in wrestling, but possibly in life. So, from your experience, who is the weirdest personality you have come across?
Smith. He does ring crew for Beyond.
Oh my god.
You know him. There's no way you don't know him.
I do know him. When I did Big Time at that Bad Religion show, that AEG was on as well. Smith did ring crew for that. That was the first time meeting him. Slade knew him from Beyond as well. and Slade is just like, oh my. Do you know Slade's nickname for that guy?
No, I don't. I'd love to hear it.
Calls him Nigel Thornberry.
Stop.
I swear to you.
Freaking love Slade.
Next time you see Slade, be like, Slade, what do you know about Nigel Thornberry? And he'll pop for you.
You know what's crazy? Anthony and I filmed an action figure video for YouTube yesterday, and he brought up the figure Nails, and he's like in a DOC like orange jumpsuit.
Right.
And I went to scream, "This is Slade," and he goes, "Don't say this is Slade," and I was really upset. So, like, if you want to laugh and you want to think about Slade in a video that does not pertain to him, go watch that YouTube video. It was great.
So Smith is amongst your weirdest personalities.
I was gonna say somebody else, but then Anthony and I we were like Smith. Yeah, Smith for sure.
Yes, I definitely would agree. Smith is an interesting individual. And on that same note, what is the worst gimmick name that you have come across in professional wrestling? I might have to switch this question up in general because, like, I guess it might just be my experience from working with so many shitbags back in the day. But, like, how awful of a name is, like, there was a dude there called the Mexican Dishwasher. Like,
Stop.
I swear to you.
What I was watching, and you're going to think this is crazy too, because I know how you are. We were watching like old CZW videos because like old CZW is my shit. And like, I knew Wife Beater was a wrestler, but
Right.
like, it blows my mind that like in the early 2000s, there was a dude named Wife Beater, and people just like allowed it.
He wasn't the only one, too. Ask around. Do you know who else was Wife Beater originally?
I was about to interrupt and say, how crazy is it that there was a second Wife Beater, and his name was Chris Hero?
Yup. Thank you. Yup.
Like,
The original Wife Beater was Chris Hero.
Like, I can't even, my brain, like, can't comprehend that, like, just, like, 20 years ago, which is so crazy that the early 2000s were, like, 20 years ago, like, that was accepted. 15 to 20 years ago, there was a wrestler named Wife Beater. What is that?
That's Philly in 2002, probably up until about 6 months ago.
Yes. Like, I can't. It's like blows my mind. Last night I was like, I can't believe this.
Ava, where can people find you on social media and anything else that you'd like to plug?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ava Everett _. I do have a Facebook fan page as well. You can search me and find Ava Everett. I do use my real name on Instagram and Twitter, so you will see Ava Everett / Evie Rogerson, because I think it's very important that while you are a wrestler, you don't forget who you are as a normal person. So I do keep, my real name on there as a reminder to people that, like, hey, I'm a real human. I'm not just who I am in the ring.
Ava, Evie, whatever you would like to go as.
Cool.
No, I'm going with Ava. We're going to keep... enough people have called me Jake on this, and I'm sticking with gimmick names.
Ava, honestly, I have not addressed you by a name because I was like, I almost called you Jake, and then I was like, I don't know if he wants to be Logan or Jake, so I'm just going to whoop.
At this point, I don't care. I think everything is just so intertwined in everything, so it doesn't necessarily matter. But, is what it is. As long as you don't call me asshole, I'm fine with it. So, Ava, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. I think you know very well that I value your work and value how much hard work you put into everything, and there is certainly a reason why you are reaching the success that you are reaching, and it's definitely about all the time and effort that you're putting into things. So, again, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
And I thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. This was so much fun.
Yes, it really was. Thank you.
No problem.
Huge thanks to the Avataker for doing this podcast. Always great to chat it up with her, but it was really cool for me to learn about her breaking in and, everything that she's kind of done to be able to reach the success that she's reached in just such a short amount of time. Before we get out of here, you should go ahead and give us a follow on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at year1pod. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel on your preferred podcasting app and leave a review. Shout out to Heroes for the music. You can check them out on Spotify. Shout out to Joanna Robinson for all the freaking design. Julie-chan on all social media. Shout out to the Funkenstein Wrestling Superstore for sponsoring the show, located at the Englishtown Flea Market in Englishtown, New Jersey, and on eBay. Make sure to check them out and give their Facebook page a like for all your wrestling merch needs. That'll be it for this episode of the Year One Wrestling Podcast. I'm Logan Black telling you, be awesome to each other. Peace and love.